Finally, someone is releasing their inner lawsuit on James Charles. What's up, guys? Today, we have to talk about James Charles because remember a few weeks ago when he said he was going to be sister suing everyone that lied about him? Well, it turns out James might want to save his lawyer's retainer fees because he's being sued by an ex-employee. It's a mess, so let's get into it.
Exposed. Exposed. You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Exposed, 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 exposed. You are exposed, sir. I'm going to expose you. Expose you. Oh my God, expose you.
So, I'm starting to think 2021 isn't going down in James' book as his best year ever. On top of everything that's happened this year already, James is now being sued by an ex-employee. I really don't think anyone saw this one coming. If you were to tell me last month that James was going to end up in a courtroom, I would have believed you, but for something much different. It turns out James might not be the best employer, or at least that's what his ex-editor/producer, Kelly Rocklin, is alleging. I do want to remind you guys, all this information is just alleged and it's only one person's side. It's a legal complaint, and until it goes to trial, we can't say for sure if James is actually guilty of these things. But we can talk about it. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Emily D. Baker. She did an amazing breakdown on this case, so after you watch this video, head over there to watch a real former district attorney explain it. Anyways, I think we need to talk about who exactly this ex-employee is. Kelly is literally the definition of a businesswoman. She's a CEO of a vegan food subscription box called Rootly. She's a creative strategist for some pretty big name brands and has worked with a lot of huge influencers. One of those influencers being Erica Costell. According to her LinkedIn, she was Erica's co-director and producer. I guess that didn't go too well though, because Kelly went on to sue Erica Costell over an employment complaint. It looks like she might have won her case against Erica too, because she tweeted, 1-1 going 2 for 2 because I'm all about law and order. It looks like the 2 for 2 may be James Charles. Kelly went on to work for James at Sister Sister LLC from March 2018 to October 2018. Even though it was only 8 months, Kelly racked up 10 complaints about James in the work environment he created. So we have failure to pay all wages upon separation, failure to provide minimum wage compensation, failure to provide overtime and double time compensation, waiting time penalties, disability discrimination, failure to provide reasonable accommodation, failure to engage in good faith interactive process, retaliation, and retaliation leading to wrongful termination. Pretty bad. The document then goes on into details about each one of these complaints, and if they're all true, it's not looking good for James. So when Kelly started working for Sister Sister LLC, her original job title was video editor. After doing an amazing job at editing his videos, James promoted her to producer in July of 2018. The only thing was, James actually didn't hire a new video editor to replace her, meaning she was stuck doing 2 jobs. She then tweeted about how hard the job was back in 2019, and everyone thinks it's about James. She wrote, when an influencer says they've been editing this video, there's a good chance they have an underpaid, underappreciated video editor working on it, who also duos as their videographer, photographer, graphic designer, PA, therapist, and friend. That also won't get creative recognition, and that's what we're seeing in this complaint. Kelly claims that since she was now taking on 2 jobs, she was working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Apparently, she wasn't being paid overtime despite working overtime hours. She told James that she wasn't being paid and he needed to hire a new video editor, but nothing was ever done. Working 2 jobs with crazy unethical hours took a huge physical and emotional toll on her. Instead of, just maybe paying Kelly the wages that she was actually owed, James thought it would be much easier to just promise her a raise in 6 months' time that would end up compensating her for her unpaid overtime. Ultimately, Kelly would never make it to 6 more months because James fired her, and she's alleging it was wrongful termination. So now we're getting into what led to the termination. On September 4th, 2018, Kelly suffered some type of head injury while in the presence of James. The injury was so bad that she actually lost consciousness and had to take an ambulance to the hospital. Her head injury came with a lot of horrible side effects, and that combined with her hospitalization time caused her to miss a lot of work and delayed James' video production goals. Now, most normal employers would be extremely concerned about their employees' health and hopefully allow them paid medical leave. Well, Kelly is alleging that instead of being concerned for her, James accused her of not being dedicated to her job, Like, what? Of course she's not going to be dedicated to her job. She was in the actual hospital with a head injury. To make things even worse, once Kelly actually did return to work, all James did was scold her for falling behind while she was hospitalized. He told her that he was disappointed that production projects were not completed and said her health isn't a good reason why videos shouldn't go up. Now here's the really sneaky part that doesn't sit right with me. The complaint alleges that in person, face-to-face, James was very critical of her time off work for her head injury and was always questioning her about it. Yet over text, he was very caring and made it known that her health was important to him. Could this be because if she ever did file a lawsuit against him, he could use those fake caring texts as proof that he actually did care? Then, on September 11th, Kelly was readmitted to the hospital for a 4th time, where she was officially diagnosed with a concussion and ordered to take a week off work to properly recover. So, when she went back to tell James that she needed a week off because she was diagnosed with a concussion, James didn't believe her. He told her that he knew that her friend was coming into town and to go enjoy the week with her. If this is true, the audacity of James is astronomical. On September 19th, after her week of medical leave, James officially fired her due to poor performance. Poor performance, yet James promoted this girl to producer and promised her a raise before her accident? If this is true, and I'm really hoping it's not for the sake of James' current employees, this is bad. Anyways, James Charles and Sister LLC did respond to the complaint, and they pretty much submitted an overall denial denying any and all claims. So he's basically saying everything you said didn't happen. So far, Kelly has been pretty outspoken on Twitter with a few subtweets, and everyone thinks it has to be about James. She wrote, "Watching the same people who screwed me over massively end up in deep scandals isn't news to me. It's karmic debt. Enough people over and the universe steps in." James has been going through some pretty big scandals recently, so if you ask me, this is most definitely about James. If anything, this was just a blessing in disguise because James seems like the last person you would ever want to be employed by. The way we've seen him speak to love interest is frankly disgusting, so I can't imagine the way he treats those who actually work for him. That ego is huge. So yeah, I'm interested in to see how this all plays out because we have two extremes in stories. We have Kelly who is alleging all these horrible things, and James who is just flat out denying everything. But what do you guys think? Anyways guys, let me know what you think about everything down below. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button because it really does help my channel, and I'll see you next time.